Hi.
Yeah.
You are on mute. Hi, Samantha. Thanks for being with us.
Hi.
We're
Hi,
going to start really quick with our picture and then we'll dive right in.
Okay.
All right, if everybody's ready. Whoop. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I just turned it off. Sorry, I went black. That did not work. 1 second. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right.
Did it work? Is it? Are we
I
done?
think so. Can you guys hear me?
Did Meryl's
Yep.
work? It looked the title looked blurry on my.
Oh shoot. Well, do you want to do it again? I'll try. I don't know
It
what.
might not have been, but it looked blurry for me. But
Yeah, it for
It's
some
internet.
reason it did.
I
It's
don't know why it's blurring.
you got some kind of lighting issue.
Oh, it's because you have your background on.
Oh, because I have a background freaking thing. Wait, how do I change that? Oh, here.
Go into your settings.
Yeah. Okay, none.
There you go. All right, now if you hold it up, we should be good.
There you go.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Get it right.
I think that'll be good. Hi, Samantha. Thanks for being with us.
Hi,
We're excited
thanks
to
for
talk
having
about
me.
this
Hello.
book.
Thank you so
Excited
much
to
for having
have
me.
you back again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who wants to start? I'm like, I have a million questions, but
A million? Woo.
Well,
Not a
one thing
million.
we were talking about was how does one become teacher of the year? I know it's super small, but we were like, considering what a weirdo he is, how did Teddy become teacher of the year?
Yeah, it is said in the book that the board of directors chooses the teacher of the year.
Okay.
Courtney's mom was on the board of directors, so she was one of the ones that would have had a say in that, which is one of the reasons that he likes Courtney. He actually is a good teacher. He's not a bad teacher. He's just does
that person.
bad things. I mean, he knows his subject and he knows how to teach. So he
Right.
isn't a bad teacher. He has friends that are other teachers. Sonia seems to be the only one he really has a problem with.
Okay.
So it's not that he's not well liked.
Hmm.
Or incompetent. You're right. He's not
Right.
incompetent.
He's definitely not incompetent. And what he
I-
started doing has only been within the past few months since Allison left him, which was really the trigger for everything when he had too much time on his hands and his wife was gone. So
But he was also pretty passive aggressive with his students, with not really acknowledging, and he did that with the former
Zach.
student.
Oh, Farron.
Oh,
Fallon.
right. So
Yeah.
he had a he knew his material, but his style with some students was not good, was pretty questionable.
right.
Thing, right? Where he was posing as like teenage girl that he had been doing for a long time and gone through several aliases.
Oh,
So even
did
before Allison left, he'd been, stalking.
Yeah,
his-
he's been spying on the students. Yeah.
student, the profile that he had created online.
Yeah.
yeah, he's not I would say he's kind of psychopathic or.
Yeah, he's definitely a psychopath.
Is it fun to write a villain?
It is, yeah. I mean, the thing about psychopaths is they can hide in plain sight because they know how to adapt. Most are actually not violent. I mean, the ones we hear about are the ones that get caught, but most psychopaths are just out there doing God knows what, but they're not necessarily killing people. So I wanted to write about what it would be like if you had a psychopath teaching your students and what he would be doing to them. He's not killing them, but he's doing all sorts of other manipulative things. With Teddy, the key really it was that he has a belief system in what his students need to learn, and he's 100% believes it. He doesn't question it. So when you're writing from that point of view, you have to be in his mindset. And the reader can see the problems with it, but he can't see the problems with it because that's where his mind is. So I think
that's what I liked so much about him as a villain was he wasn't like a bad guy trying to do bad things. He had this belief system and he went with it.
Mhm.
So what do you, I was wondering about Frank, Frank Maxwell, because of course there's kind of at the very end of the book, he commits murder, but obviously has like a breakdown or has been in the process of a breakdown for a good part of the book. So, and then becomes kind of or maybe he always is a religious fanatic. I think so.
He was religious throughout the whole book.
Yeah. So then he kills this guy who we obviously doesn't like. He doesn't, Teddy.
No, he's evil. He's getting rid of evil in the world.
Right. So
Because-
that was his motivation. He's not really psychopathic. He just had like a mental breakdown and
He would call it, he was enlightened. He didn't have a breakdown.
he would call it that. But like,
Yeah.
what would people looking at? Like, what would a doctor call it or what?
Yeah, he had like a break
that.
with reality.
Yeah. And then he becomes like, I think, kind of religious fanatic. But if you're a fanatic in any area, and sort of go to its logical or conclusion, you could be doing a lot of crazy things. Interesting.
Well, he was
So I-
depressed, right? He was suffering from severe depression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely had a break of some kind, and in his mind found the way through becoming part of the church.
I saw this got picked up for HBO. How involved are you going to be with that? Congratulations.
I don't know. They have hired showrunners who I've talked to, and they're working on the script for it. And I had a meeting with them, but going forward, I don't know. I guess once the first thing to do is always write the script, because that's what they send out to directors and actors and trying to put it together. So we'll see how far it goes. I've heard of writers that become really involved, and I've heard the writers that aren't involved at all when their books are adapted. So I'm not sure how much I'll be involved in it beyond any type of consultations on the script. I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about production, so I can't be very helpful in that. So we'll see.
I think it'd make for a good movie or a series,
It's going to be a series is what they
Series?
said.
Yeah, it'll be a
Mhm.
limited series.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah, I'm
we'll-
anxious to see it. It's always fun to see that. I imagine. I haven't seen it yet, but I imagine as a writer, it's always fun to see somebody's adaptation of it.
And when they get it like that and they do their script and so forth, and especially if they're thinking of a series, I guess they can add how much can they change
They can change anything they want. They have, once they buy the rights to it, they have creative control.
Okay.
So
They can kill
I've seen a
people
number
off.
of books recently that were adapted into TV shows or movies, and I've read the books and they added a lot and they changed a lot. So sometimes with books, when you have books that have a lot of internal dialogue or internal monologue, they have to translate that into the screen somehow. You can't just have somebody reading on screen. So internal monologue is probably the part where I've seen entire scenes invented and entire characters. If you saw The Flight Attendant and read the book, there were a lot of scenes in there where she was having conversations with the dead guy. None of that happened in the book. It was all internal monologue, but they have to show it to you somehow on the screen. So there was a lot of things in this book. There's not as much internal monologue. It's all there. So I don't know how much they're actually going to have to invent to show that. Some of Teddy's stuff, maybe. There's probably the most of it when it comes to Teddy, but a lot of it is shown in scenes already. So, the other one was The Undoing on HBO, which was a book that was almost entirely inner monologue. That was a literary novel that it was completely different than what the TV show was. They had to
Really?
invent a huge amount of scenes that never happened in the book. So it just depends on how they decide to tell the story. But yeah, they can do anything. They can change the ending. They can change names. They can, there aren't very many writers that get creative control. I think probably the only two in the world are Stephen King and J.K. Rowling.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
Stephen King always has it. It's standard, and he's never exercised it. He's always let people do what they want anyway. It's there as more of a, he has said, it's there as more of a deterrent to anybody straying too far from the story, that they know he could step in if he wanted to, but he never actually has. And Hollywood definitely doesn't want an author telling them what to do. They want to do what they want with the story. They don't want me coming in and saying, but I love that character. You can't cut that character because the author's too close to it, right? So.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're very realistic about it, about the process.
Yeah, I would just like to see, it would just be interesting to see how somebody else sees it. And like even their casting, like how they even see the characters, it could be completely different from how I see them. So
Yeah.
It'll be fun to see it. Yeah.
Do you have anybody in your head that you would envision for someone like Teddy or Courtney or?
I'm not very good at teenage actors. I definitely don't know very many teenage actors out there. For Zach, the picture in my mind that I had when I thought about Zach is like a 17-year-old Zac Efron. So that sort of cute dimples, everybody thinks he's good. He's just traditionally good looking, kind of a charming guy. That's how I pictured Zach. For Teddy, my original thought was somebody kind of nerdy and quiet and unassuming, like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And then I saw that somebody online had suggested James McAvoy, and he's a little hunkier and a little better looking.
He's hunkier.
And yeah, and so that would be a different twist on it. But right now, I'm a little obsessed with the idea of Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek, Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Now he's older and he's got the beard and he
see
looks
that.
like he could, but I understand he's playing a psychopath right now on some series on Paramount or something.
Who is that? Who did you say?
Joshua Jackson.
Oh, okay.
So
I could
maybe
see Joseph Gordon-Levitt though. Yeah.
I mean, because you wouldn't be naturally scared of him. He's not a scary person, and he's not so good looking. He's intimidating. Some guys are so good looking, you would like that would be distracting. The fact that they're so good looking.
Yeah.
I think
And I could see him going that real creepy route.
I think Paul Giamatti would be a good Teddy. I don't know if he's too old for it.
Too old.
Yeah. I was thinking of
Definitely too old.
the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, who would be too old at this point, but back in the day when he was younger, because I just saw Mr. Ripley, The Amazing Mr. Ripley. I think that's the name of it. It's from a novel also.
That's a
It's been
great
made a couple
movie.
times, but it was on recently when Philip Seymour Hoffman was young, and he would have made a very good Teddy. Of course, he was a very good actor, but unfortunately, he's gone. So
Yeah.
Well, I don't suppose Hollywood's going to ask our book club for our.
No, they haven't asked. They haven't asked me
Script too.
for my. And then the other one that I do, I don't really picture actors as I'm writing it, but when I started thinking about it, Fallon, the only person I can see is Fallon now. So if it's anybody else, I don't know who they would get. But now, once I saw it, the young woman from Queen's Gambit.
oh yeah.
She has that like super intense look about her. She looks like she's about to kill somebody sometimes.
Yeah.
She gets that wicked look about her, and she's just the right age to be Fallon. Or she appears to be just the right age. So somebody along those lines.
She's a good actress.
I have a coworker who's like in her 20s, and her name is Fallon. And when I I don't know too many Fallons. And so when the character came into the book, I texted her and I said, I'm reading this great novel, and I told her that, what the name of it. And I said, there's a Fallon who's just been introduced. I think she's young and pretty and very smart. Those were my first impressions of her, before she starts doing more stuff in the book. But so my friend is like, oh, what book is it? I got to put it on my list.
Yeah, Fallon, that name was popular when Dynasty was out because the daughter in that was named Fallon. But now I think they rebooted the series. I don't know. That's where I first heard the name, was like when I was a little kid watching Dynasty or something. There was the famous character named Fallon.
Mhm.
What research did you do when you were writing this? Like, did you have to look up poisons? And because I started to Google poison after this, I looked up doll's eye to see if it was legitimate and like what it did and all of that. So I was curious.
Yeah,
to
the
know.
plants, I did a huge amount of research in because I'm not a plant person, so I don't know anything about them, but I know a lot of people are. And if I used real plants, there would definitely be people that would know what.
Yeah,
they
you're
were-
right.
And so I really had to research how long poisons took to do what they do, or how much was needed to kill them, because a lot of the poisonous plants, it takes a lot to be able to kill. Like you would have to consume a lot of it, an unreasonable amount that would be, you'd have to eat it over a series of days, and mostly you'd get sick before you ever died. So I had to have stuff that really worked within a certain amount of period of time and would kill people. So I had to choose them. There actually aren't that many. Most of them do make you ill long before they kill you. And you would end up in the hospital and they would figure it out or whatever. So there actually weren't that many to choose from. I just got lucky really that these are plants that actually would grow in the Northeast and wouldn't be in some other country or something. So but I had to do a lot of research into that. And then just as far as it being set in a school, because I'm not a teacher, I have a writers group here in New Orleans, and one of the people in the writers group is an ex-teacher. So she really kept me on point as in regards to the behind the scenes school stuff and what would be realistic and what would not be realistic of what they could do. And in a private school, there's a little more leeway because they don't have the rules of a public school, especially not when it comes to the class plans and the things that they have to do in class. They don't have to abide by what the state says or whatever.
Okay.
At what point when you were writing, were you like, yeah, milk is what my creepy character is going to be drinking to really creep everybody out?
Well, what I try to do is I try to take something familiar that people are familiar with or that people can relate to, and then make it twisted. So when I originally wrote it, he came home at night and poured himself a drink, the way a lot of people do when they get home at night. And then I just thought, okay, well, but what he could be drinking that would be weird? Like he comes home and pours himself a drink, but it's not alcohol. What else could it be? And I chose milk. And I never thought it would be that weird. I thought it was weird, but I didn't think it was creepy. And all of the people that read the early thing were like, oh my God, the milk. And I was like, really? Like I knew it was weird. I knew it was off, but I didn't realize it was so creepy for someone to drink milk like that. I just thought it was weird. So I just ran with it and thought, okay, well, if people think milk is creepy, I'll just make it even creepier.
I think it's the restriction of it and the way we see milk as something healthy for us, yet he sees it as something special and he can only have it in a special way at a special time. I think that's what makes it creepy, because you're like, it's just milk. Our babies like live off milk for the first 6 months of their lives. So I think, yeah, it's the way you made it into something.
Yeah. So that worked out well, I guess.
Yeah.
I never really thought of it as anything until I started getting the reaction to it. And I was like, wow, okay. I didn't realize it was that creepy. So, okay.
I guess sometimes it's funny what you see people react to.
It is. And that's the importance of really getting feedback on your writing, that the way that you mean it isn't necessarily the way people perceive it, and they get different things from it. And, you know, if you get one opinion one way and another 9 people say something else, then the 9 people are probably more representative of the general public than the one person that had a reaction. But when you get a bunch of people agreeing on something, then, and everybody thought milk was creepy, it was like, oh, okay, then I didn't realize it was going to be that creepy. Or I may have a character that I really like and everybody reads it and says, I hate this character, then clearly I'm not getting it across the way I want to get it across.
Well, then he was also very like, you know, he didn't, it sounded like he did not consume sugar and he would only allow him, you know, and it was, and I don't know, milk when you're an adult is kind of a weird, I mean, I know that my mother must have given me milk, but from the earliest time, you know, like I was 3, I couldn't drink milk, and 4, you know, I would not be able to drink white milk. I couldn't, and I wasn't allergic. I just could not stand the taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but so the idea that some adult is coming home and pouring himself a tall glass of milk is just like, ugh.
Yeah, it is unusual. Adults don't really drink milk like that.
I
So
love milk. I love a good glass of milk.
Yeah, but you're a
But I have something
psychopath.
with it.
You're a psychopath. So.
Oh, well, there you go. Who was your favorite character to write?
probably Teddy. Teddy was a lot of fun to write. Just getting into his head, just the way he thought about things was fun. So Sonia was fun too. She just wasn't around very long.
Mm.
I loved the way you wrote Sonia. She was just,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say she resonated because, you know, no, I'm not like her, but just she was, her superficiality, you did such a nice job with that. I'm sorry you killed her off as early as you did. I mean, it was okay you killed her off, but I loved the scenes with her because she was just so Sonia. It was just great.
Mhm.
She was kind of real too. I mean, I think there were touches like with her, sometimes she was obsessing over what she was going to wear.
Yeah.
The way a woman that age would self-consciously do that was very real. You know, we've all been there.
Definitely.
I was really sad to see Fallon die. I liked her, and because she was smart. She was plugging away at, you know, even though it was revenge, but, you know, she sort of had a lot to take revenge. You know, she had a lot of reasons to want to be getting revenge on this guy. And I just was sad to see her die. I wish she could have lived to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of Fallon as bad at all. Fallon discovered what other people were doing that was bad and exploited it. So
Right.
She, like, even trying to catch Teddy, she put up cameras to try to catch him doing something bad. She wasn't making him do something
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
She had a way of getting information and then using it, and then blackmailing someone or using it or revealing something. But she just was catching what other people were doing.
Right.
And
I had a question though too about at the end. So Zach goes to the FBI, you know, when he puts everything together and he, with whatever information, all the information he has, he goes to the FBI, and then I think Teddy goes back to the FBI to undo that because he finds out he does that, I guess, or
no, they came to Teddy. They
Yeah.
came to Teddy to ask him about Zach, and that's when he,
Right. So he knows
he tries to discredit.
Yeah. So then at the end, when and they're at the memorial event, and Zach is looking for them because he's sure that they're going to come to the event and arrest Teddy, I assume. They don't, right? So did the FBI buy into the that Zach was discredited?
No, well, in the epilogue, it's vague. The FBI claims that they were investigating the whole time. They just didn't have enough evidence before Teddy died. So it's vague on what the FBI were doing because they take so long to get put things together and to root through people's computers and do their whole thing. So was the FBI investigating the whole time? We don't know, because we don't have the perspective of an FBI agent. They could have been, or they could have just dropped the ball and wanted the whole thing over, because they had arrested the wrong person. So they had arrested Courtney wrongly, had to let her go, or the police did, and they didn't want to make another mistake and get the wrong person again. So they might have just been being extra careful before anybody else got arrested. So, but we don't really know the details, because we didn't have any inside look into what the FBI was actually doing.
Did you know how this was going to end when you started writing it, or did it
No.
evolve?
No, I never know how it's going to.
Really?
No.
And you
Yeah.
don't write, do you write straight through to the end, or do you do middle or end, or just?
No, I write from the beginning to the, I have to discover the story the same way sort of a reader does. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, so I can't skip ahead to the middle or the end, because I don't know how I'm even going to get there. So it's sort of like each chapter I write gives me the next idea. So the story sort of opens up as I write it. I don't plot the stories. There are lots of writers who do. I'm just not one of them. I can't sit down and plot out an entire book. It's entirely too over. I have to write it to figure it out.
Overwhelming, yeah.
So maybe that's
It means I throw out a lot of stuff too, because it doesn't always work doing it that way. Sometimes I start a book and the story doesn't go anywhere, or it's not interesting, or it's not, the books are 85,000 words. Maybe the story isn't even big enough for 85,000 words. Maybe the story is just too small. So there are a lot of things that I start that don't go anywhere and don't turn into anything.
Did you
I think
have
that
any?
works for me as a reader, though, because you take us with you and it doesn't seem so manufactured, or so a lot of times we pretty much know what's going to happen. We're fine for the ride anyway, even though we know what's going to happen, but we didn't know what was going to happen because of the way you wrote it, or because of the way you told it. So I think I was much more involved in this book on an emotional level.
Yeah,
Did
and
you
it
have-
might be. I mean, I don't follow the typical. There are blueprints of books, and that you, at this point you hit this mark, and at this point you hit this mark, and I don't follow the blueprint, so I just write it, and the twists come where they come, and I don't know that I don't know if you lined up a blueprint, and except for the end, there's always a twist at the end, but I can't really write a book that doesn't have any twists and then just has a huge twist at the end. Like, you have to be sort of a more voluminous writer, and the way that I write is very short and very concise. And so I need like stuff happening the whole book that keeps the story
Even
moving.
if you don't plot, I think you have a natural instinct for when something needs to happen. Like, it's getting boring. So you're like, something's got to happen. So I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's usually when somebody dies. Oh my God, clearly somebody's got to die.
And it works. I love a good death.
That's funny.
Did you have any alternate endings for this one? Or
I
anything
did
that you-
change the ending. I did. The very, 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 very end, the very last sentences of the book. I left it vague as to what was going to happen with Zach and what kind of teacher he would turn into, because he's still only 17 years old. And so is he going to turn out like Teddy? Is he going to turn out like Sonia? Is he going to be a good person? We don't know, because he doesn't know. We just know that he's going to go back and be a teacher. My original ending was much darker, that he had chosen the dark side. And so, but I decided that was probably not appropriate for a 17-year-old, because you can't make a decision like that at 17. He doesn't know yet. So if it was an adult, I might have done it. But in the end, I decided it was better to leave it vague, because we just don't know how Zach will turn out.
But did you intend for readers with the ending that you wrote? Did you was it your intention for people to think like, oh, I'm going to do what Teddy did in class. I'm going to like,
I think some readers will. I think everybody will have a different opinion of it.
oh, okay.
It
Cause I
can
was
sound
like,
very
oh.
ominous, or it can sound very not ominous, depending
Yeah.
on how you read it.
I just kind of thought like, wow, I thought Zach was kind of, Zach knew how damaging it was for what Teddy was doing to him before the murder stuff. Just, selecting a student to intentionally go after and not give them the grades that they're really earning, that's pretty underhanded for a teacher. It probably happens all over the place, but
Well, I think if you take everything that Zach learned, I mean, he tried to do the right thing and contact the FBI. It didn't work.
mm-hmm,
The one who got rid of Teddy is the one who killed him.
right,
And the problem with that was he wasn't smart enough to get away with it.
right.
So this is what Zach has learned, is that, Teddy was a bad guy and the only way to get rid of him was to murder him.
Yeah.
And if Frank had only been smarter, he might have been able to get away with it. So this is a big lesson for a 17-year-old when you try to do the right thing and it still doesn't work. So that's sort of where I was going with Zach, is that he would become more of a vigilante, that he learned that sometimes you have to kill people to get rid of them. You just have to be good enough to get away with it.
Right. Gosh. Okay. I guess him and Courtney will team up and
That's season 2 of the TV show.
all to this book.
He'll be a Dexter.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a question about the first headmaster that hung himself.
Mm-hmm.
Are we to assume that Teddy, like, because there's a reference to heart problems, or I just, in my mind, I thought, I wonder if that had something to do with Teddy also, or that Teddy had something to do with that.
No, that he
Okay.
killed himself because of the information Fallon had, and that
Okay.
and then he was a gambler. So he really did kill himself, but it was
Just some of the things that Teddy would say about
Oh,
him.
Right.
Yeah.
It was always like, this seems like a question to me. Interesting though.
Plus Teddy was kind of ambitious and thought he could do a better job.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It was interesting to me how similar Teddy and Sonia were in their like self-righteousness of like, oh, I'm a good teacher, I'm a good person because this is how I'm doing this. It was just they went very different ways with it, but they both had that kind of dangerous mentality of I know what's best.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Sonia to me is more typical of it, because a lot of her identity and her pride was wrapped up in her job. And
She
a
was very
lot of people are
codependent.
like that. Their career is who they are. And the way students talked to her and called her Mrs. B, and she was very proud of all this, and she was good at it. And it was a source of her confidence and her own self-accomplishment.
So I guess it's a different world now, where teachers can go online and see what students are saying about them. We didn't have that. I wasn't a
Right.
teacher, but my teacher friends, my sister, my parents, they were teachers. You might hear from parents, you might hear from other teachers about your teaching, but students really didn't have much say. I mean, students would tell each other, oh, that teacher's this or that, but it didn't really resonate that much. But now with social media, and then the teacher going online and seeing what's said about them.
Exactly. Which can be not a good thing for the wrong person.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a good thing for teaching. I mean, when I was in college, you would fill out at the end of the semester, you were given something to feedback for the professor, assistant professor, you know, and people would write reviews. And I think, oddly enough, I think we were mostly pretty polite. We might have some comments in there about their teaching, but for the most part, you know, and it was probably helpful to a certain degree. I don't know that now all these comments, whether do they help a teacher teach better, or are they just kind of dehumanizing?
Right, exactly.
I would
Exactly. And it would
suspect
also let teachers know if students are being that mean to them, think about how mean they are to each other. They
Yeah.
get a sense of what the bullying is like when somebody is bullied online.
That's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point. Reminder to them.
I was going to say, I suspect it's like, oh, you know, you can put just throw something up on Facebook and you get somebody who has some negative reaction to it. You can have all this great positive and one little negative, and that has an impact. And the same thing, I think, with evaluations. But so having this more immediate feedback, I think, for everybody in general, and then of course we have it for the teachers in particular in this situation. I think the immediate feedback is scary, because somebody can lash out with emotion. I could have a teacher, I don't know where I'm going with this idea, but I think just the immediacy of social media is really making some changes in our social interaction. Maybe I should just
Oh, definitely.
stop with that. Yeah, that was
No, I think that's a valid point, in that I know for myself is I might get offended by something, and it's like, I'm offended by it. And then seriously, like 2 or 3 days later, and like, that was nothing, you know, and I can't believe I was even upset about it. That's how quickly it dissipates. I don't think I'm that unusual. So the idea that when I'm really angry about it, I could go and just, you know, do a bunch of damage online. But whereas if I waited 2 or 3 days and put it in perspective, and they're like, well, that was kind of silly. I bet I was just hungry.
What inspired you to write about a private school and all of the inner workings in this story?
I actually just started with the idea of writing about a bad teacher. That's the original idea I came up with, and I knew it would not be a sexual predator, and that was not the direction I wanted to go in, because that's more typical of what you see in bad teachers. But a teacher that was an actual psychopath, and what the kinds of things they would be teaching the students. And the private school, it sort of came about because there are fewer rules, and that he would have more leeway into what he was teaching and how he would grade things, opposed to a public school. It was originally going to be in a public school when I wasn't even thinking of a private school, but then the idea of the parents thinking that they have a say in the grades. I mean, in a private school, they pay the school directly. It's not done through taxes.
Right.
They're technically paying these people salaries, so they think of them as employees, and that they can go tell the teachers what to do. So that dynamic between the teachers and the students and the parents and the behind the scenes stuff, it's its own little microcosm of society, and where money is everything. And you're a teacher and you have students that drive nicer cars than you do. And you have students that wear nicer clothes than you have. And they have these big futures ahead of them at Ivy League schools, and what that must feel like for a teacher. I've had a number of teachers contact me saying they completely get how Teddy feels. Like, they don't agree with his actions, but they totally get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
That's just because teachers are not compensated
Sure.
correctly in today's world, you know, anywhere, any teacher.
Sure.
Right. And there's
I
so
had
much
one teacher
predator.
contact me who taught at a wealthy school, and said her students would say they were going to sue her if they didn't like the assignment. Well, my parents are going to sue you. I mean, that's what these kids learn. These are really rich kids whose parents talk about suing other people a lot, apparently.
See,
God.
Becky and I went all through school together. We've known each other since we were like 4 or 5 years old and went all the way through school together in a small town in Illinois. And that was very much pervasive. I think Becky will back me up on this. And that if you were in trouble at school, you were in twice as much trouble at home. You didn't go home and say, I've got a bad teacher, because if you did, you were going to be told, you better behave in that class and you better do what that teacher says, you know. And years later, I found out that, yeah, my parents did know that some of these teachers they weren't bad, but they weren't good. But at the time, it was like, you're in that class and you're going to do what they say and you're going to do your homework and you're going to learn. And it was like, okay, no whining about the teacher.
Well, and Phyllis and I also, our parents were teachers, so, and knew the system and knew everybody. But you're right, Phyllis, that many years later, you know, Dad would start to say, well, kind of talking about somebody.
Yeah.
Never would have done it while we were there, because we had to
No.
respect the teacher, do what we were supposed to. But that feedback later on is kind of interesting.
It is kind of interesting. It's like, what? I said that teacher wasn't any good, and I about got sent to my room. You know, it's like, what? Yeah, well, now that you're 45, I can agree with you.
Yeah.
Years later.
Who was the most challenging character to develop? We talked about who your favorite was, but did you struggle developing anybody?
No, not in particular. Maybe Frank, because he leaves for so long and then returns, and the had gone through such a huge development in between that trying to capture that without showing every moment of what he had been through and trying to make it obvious what kind of place he was in, probably.
With the school custodian, what's his name, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all I could think about was the movie The Bad Seed, where the old movie The Bad Seed, where the little girl like burns the building, whatever he was like the building superintendent,
Yeah.
custodian, and that's all I could think. That was my picture, and when I was thinking about Joe, it was like, oh, no, Teddy's gonna kill you. You don't mess with him.
What did happen to Joe? I don't remember.
Well,
They were arrested.
Him and Marcia, Ms.
Yeah.
Marcia. But then, so that was other arrests that were made. But then, are they exonerated? I can't.
Yeah, they were let out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I hope Joe gets a really good book deal after all of this, you know, like the wrongly accused janitor that like has to put up with all this crap.
I like to
have a
see
character who kind of sees through, who kind of, you know, they're the one who's early on suspicious, or because I don't know, it adds a dimension to it, because you're thinking, okay, is he going to reveal? Is he going to confront? Is he going to?
Well, and I like the scene
happened
where he
there?
called Teddy out for being in the trash, for like rooting in the trash, basically. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
He's like, go you. I was like, that is bold and brave, you know, but then Teddy sees him eating breakfast in the kitchen and figures he's like the perfect scapegoat for all of this.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably making less money than the teacher, so you know he's vulnerable.
sure.
You know,
Sure.
And he's not going to have friends on the board. They're probably, you know,
Right.
yeah.
kind of negligible to them. They don't really recognize his participation as much,
Right.
possibly. He's not giving anybody a grade, so
Right.
off the radar.
Right.
And I'm sure to most people he's disposable, unfortunately, in that school. You know, if he's not doing the job, somebody can come
Yeah,
behind
and
him.
he's not somebody who's bringing in any money. Nobody's donating money because of him, so he's not
Yeah.
contributing in that sense.
I did wonder what had happened to Teddy's plaque. So it was interesting to hear that Zach was the one that had it in the end. I kind of loved that because I'm like, I thought it was Fallon the whole time. Like, I just
Mhm.
I
thought
did
it was
too.
Fallon messing with him, getting back at him. Like, that's the only thing that's up in Teddy's room. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, and she wanted to get, I don't know that she really wanted to get back at him. Like you said, she was just trying to expose him for what he was doing. But I thought that was like her one jab at him, maybe like by taking that was like the one thing that he held dear and precious. And so she took it, and to find out that it was Zach was pretty fantastic at the end. I was like, did not necessarily see that coming,
Mhm.
but made me wonder if that was like the start of Zach's spiral. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. And the fact that he hangs it up on the wall,
Mhm.
he doesn't just throw it away, he hangs it up.
Right.
That made me wonder if that was the start of his spiral, if there was a continuation, if he was like Teddy Jr. You know what I'm saying? Or
Mhm.
like you said, just learn to be smart enough to not get caught.
Right.
Well, and he was smart because when he was doing his research, he was doing it in the Starbucks, like not at his
Yeah.
home on his network where things could be traced. I'm like, so
Yeah.
he definitely was smarter than a lot of them. So if he wanted to be devious, he had a better chance of getting away with it.
Oh yeah, he was definitely smart. And Zach, I really thought of him as, in general, the high school kids, but through him, I mean, in high school, what you're basically doing is maneuvering through all the adults in your life. It's just a maze, and you're just maneuvering through all the pressures and plus the peer pressure, and you're realizing that you need to be a different person in front of different people. You're consciously realizing that your parents want to see you like this, your friends want to see you like this, and that you become these different people when you get in front of them. So he's a different person in front of Sonia that he is in front of Teddy or his friends or his parents.
He bribed a prison guard. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I wasn't doing that when I was 17. Like yeah, there was more to
No,
that.
and I mean, he's like a rich, white, privileged, entitled kid that you should hate, but he's actually really nice. And he's actually a good person, but he's very self-aware of his privilege, which
Right.
makes him likable. He's not clueless to the fact that he's rich and he has all of this at his disposal. He just knows how to use it.
Right.
Like bribing, he knows he can probably bribe a prison guard, that a prison guard may need money, and he has it.
Yeah, and then and he's what was your thought where you're with him and his relationship? You know, his parents are obviously like, I don't know what I think about his parents. I mean, they're super rich. They're not I don't know if you would say they're hands-on, because they relinquish things to other, they hire other people to do things with their son that needs to be done. But they obviously are, like they're watching every second of him and what he's doing and where he's going to go, because they want to make sure he gets to the best of the best of the best. But he doesn't appreciate, he's not like, and that's pressure, and that's not necessarily positive pressure. And so, but then he starts reflecting on all of the things his father has said and done and said, and how and he wishes he had realized sooner how smart his father is and how
The
right
wardisms.
on point.
The
his
wardisms,
father
yeah.
is. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting, but what was your thought about that?
I think his parents are, I think his parents are doing what they think is best, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad, but they're also very busy and they're not really present.
Mhm.
So yes, mom is texting him, but she's not there. But when she needs to be there, when he gets arrested, she's there. So I think they're flawed like any parents, and I think that they expect a lot from Zach and they expect him to deliver, but in Zach's case, he actually can deliver. So he's smart enough to get the grades, and so the pressure is there, but he does want to get out from under it. Clearly, he wants to be out of the house and away from it. He's at that age where he's too old for it, he feels. And doesn't really need it, but Zach at the same time understands the advantage of going to an Ivy League school. It's not like he doesn't understand his parents' pressure. He totally gets it. He just expects it to happen at this point because he's gotten the grades and he's done the work and he has the money, and it should be a given at this point that he gets into it. He just wants to get there already.
Well, and he wants
So
to
I
get
don't
out
think
of
his
his-
parents are terrible. I don't think that they're perfect. The Courtney's mom was a lot worse, and Fallon's parents were a lot worse.
Yeah, they're terrible because they're not even helping her one bit,
Yeah.
anything. And she's young. I mean, she's, if you had kids and they're in their 20s, early 20s, I think most parents would be, even if they can, they're going to figure out how they can. And her parents obviously had money, so there was no reason for them not to help her. It was just weird.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel bad for Zach's gray room. Whenever he would describe his room and like how gray and drab it was, I'm like, it just made me sad for him. I'm like, because I could see how that would just, I don't know, not be the best environment to be in. Not somewhere you want to stay and hang out and study and be super focused.
Right. Exactly.
That's a good point, Brittany, because I think the way you wrote that, Samantha, you felt that kind of claustrophobia for him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was a big, fabulous house, it felt very contained, and you've got that sense of him, and you can kind of remember what it was like when you're an adolescent, and you're just like, I can't wait to get out of here. And I had a very good home life, but it was like, I'm going to graduate and go off to college and not have any kind of, the constraints are gone, and he
Exactly.
had so many. I mean, it was really, you felt it in that house, in that gray room that Brittany.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and that was kind of my favorite part in the epilogue when he's like, this room isn't gray. Like, he starts to describe where he is and Teddy's clock's on the wall. And I was just like, oh, I was like, oh, he might be okay. Like, this might be the start of, his downfall, but at least his room's not gray.
Yeah.
He's got that going for him. Can you tell us about anything you're working on now? Or is there anything that's coming up to look forward to?
Working on the next book. It's not done yet, so it'll be out in 2023. I don't know when, hopefully the spring, but I don't have a date. But another thriller.
Yeah, good.
Good.
I was
Yay.
gonna say we love the thrillers.
Yeah.
Does anybody else
Oh,
have any other
I-
questions?
I just wanted to throw out, I appreciated all the titles of past books that you had in there that the kids were reading or voting on or everything. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
just fun to revisit that whole list.
That's
And having been a teacher, I've taught a couple of them, so it was really fun to take a look at that. It was just fun.
Yeah, I mean, readers tend to read. So making him an English teacher and naming other books seems like kind of a no-brainer. Plus the fact that it's easier to go. Most English classes have a lot of essays, and when you're grading an essay, so much of it is personal opinion that it would make it easier for him to change grades as opposed to math problems where you could feasibly get every answer correct, and then there's nothing you can do about it, that either the student gets it right or it doesn't. When it comes to essays, it's a whole lot of judgment going on. So
true.
Well, and it was interesting too because Teddy thought that the essay that Zach wrote was too good in the time frame, that it could have never been his writing, that it might have been plagiarized. And he was
But it
working
wasn't.
so hard to try to, that was interesting, but he was working so hard to try to prove that it was. And then it makes you wonder, I'm like, well, was it? I mean, it wasn't, but you're like, it was really good and it was really fast. Like, but I guess you
Yeah.
really get the sense of how smart Zach is at that point.
yeah. And then you saw him actually reading the book that he had fallen asleep reading in the library, and he wasn't searching around for a paper to buy. Otherwise he wouldn't have even bothered reading the book at all.
But he had the money to do that had he have chosen to go in that direction, I'm sure he could have very easily found one, but he
Yeah.
really did do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like really basically I liked Zach. Yeah, you do like, I think he's a sympathetic character. That's why, at the end I was kind of like, oh wait, are you gonna be, and not that you don't become more cynical or aware as you go through life. I think we all do that, oh wow, we're not just like, everything isn't rose colored, perfect, teachers are great, blah, blah, blah. You learn that pretty quickly, like as a student, that some teachers are horrible, some are not psychopathic though, but and you learn a lot about, you get disappointed and get knocked down, and I think, it's like you get a little jaded or whatever, or more aware of navigating life. And so I don't know if he's really turning bad, or if he's just learning lessons that you have to learn, hopefully implementing them but you won't be a like horrible person. You'll just be aware. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. It's not written.
That's why
it could be anything.
waiting for the sequel. So maybe 2025.
Could happen.
Have you ever considered writing a sequel?
No,
I'm sick of
not
it.
at this point, no.
Are you like done when you're done, basically, when you put a story to
Yeah,
rest
but
and finish it?
Teddy was so much of the book and he's dead. So I don't know. I don't know if I guess if HBO asked me to, because they're going to make another season, then I guess maybe I would, then I'd figure it out. But in my mind, it's kind of like with My Lovely Wife too. Millicent was such a big part of the book. I don't know how a sequel would work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it'd have to be Zach at that point.
Yeah, it has to
Yeah,
be.
it would definitely have to be Zach or Zach and Courtney. And then,
And who else is around? No one. Who are the, okay.
yeah,
I was like,
they're not
Frank
even at
is-
the same school anymore.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Zach and Courtney.
Well, we're definitely excited for your next one.
Thank you so much. And thank you
I
for
was gonna
reading this one.
You know we're gonna read it.
Fun.
Oh my gosh. I picked the books. We're definitely going to read it.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know when it's done and I have a release date.
Great,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
I
for
had
being
a-
with us. Oh, go ahead, Phyllis.
Oh, I had a long drive to make, and uncharacteristically, usually it's Steve and I together in the car, and this was a long drive I was making myself, and I was listening to your book, and it was a wonderful experience. Sometimes driving can actually be fun, and this was a fun drive. It was about 3 hours, and it was beautiful outside, and I was listening to your book, and it was just this really pleasant experience. I wasn't in heavy Georgia, Atlanta traffic. I was out, been up in the mountains of North Georgia, actually North Carolina, and then coming back to Atlanta. And I thought, this is just really pleasant and fun.
That's
Nice
good. That's
speaking.
good.
Much better than some of the audiobooks that you've listened to, Mom.
We don't have to go in. That's my daughter. She's traumatized because of audiobooks she had to listen to when she was a child. You weren't even that little of a child.
It was about the Ebola virus and what
The
happened to
hot
people.
zone.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
never
You're
recovered.
trapped in the car, right? Having to listen
Trapped
to
in the car with me, listening to the hot zone.
Very graphic details about, yeah. Haunts me.
Bad mother.
Haunts me to this day. It's why I don't listen to audio, but I can't, because everything goes back to the hot zone.
I don't like some of the narrators sometimes, or the way that they're the voices, the vocals or whatever of I mean, it's very fast and convenient, because you can get a book through a book quick. Because you're
Yeah.
driving, or you drive you spend so much time sometimes in the car, but yeah, sometimes I'm like,
Get a new appreciation for actors, because there'll be some authors that want to read their own books, and that works sometimes. And a lot of times it really doesn't work. You need to have an actor. You need to have somebody reading it who is not you.
right, true.
I listened to this one. I enjoyed it. Sometimes I read and sometimes I listen. I'm a mix depending on what's going on in our time frame. But I liked the narration.
Yeah, that's
Teddy felt
David Patu. He narrated My Lovely Wife too.
Mm.
and I physically read that one. I was like, so
Yeah.
I like couldn't put it down. I'm like that one I had.
Yeah, I've read both of yours. I haven't I think I did Kindle for My Lovely Wife, but this one I had your book, so.
Well, thank you for being with us and Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Thank you. Happy holidays to everybody there. I hope you have a good one, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, take
Yeah, I was like, it's coming up. It's crazy. I don't know where this year went.
I don't know. It's lost in the virus world.
A lot of things are lost. Yeah, they are.
to Omicron.
Uh,
2022. Unfortunately.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for having me. Thank you for reading the book. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I look forward to coming back again.
I
Yeah,
was gonna
for
say we'd love to
coming.
have you
Thank
back for the
you.
next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Hold on one second.